Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Hello, everybody. Welcome back again for another week with Barry and me. We were just chatting and saying we always have these shows where we are, oh, that would be a good topic, or that would be a good topic. And but anyway, whether it was the last show or the show before, jealousy, we touched on jealousy. Oops, sorry, my doggy is walking in the background. Hope you don't mind. Lucy, sit down. Lucian, I should say. So so today we wanted to talk about jealousy and the impact jealousy has on our relationships. And there's there's no judgment. There's many reasons why somebody may feel jealous. I think some people are naturally more jealous than others. I tend to be somebody that doesn't experience jealousy like some people I know. Maybe it's my Pollyanna attitude, but and especially as given I was cheated on quite severely, people are like, how can you move on from that? How can you not jealous? And I made a conscious decision to, I'd rather be alone than be in a relationship that is toxic and is riddled with jealousy. Now, that's not to say that there are some relationships where, there's a reason to be jealous. Your partner has a roving eye, or they've betrayed you in the past and you're insecure in the relationship, or they intentionally want to make you jealous to build up their self-esteem. So there are those factors too. It's not just always that the person that feels jealous is there's something wrong with them. They have low self-esteem, or they're hypervigilant because they've been cheated on before, or any of those things. So I just thought this would be an interesting topic to dive into. And as I said, the dynamics of persistent, uncontrolled jealousy, how that can impact the relationship.
Well, the thing for me, and this is speaking of my own experience, I definitely, when I was younger, I say experience is the wrong word. I rested in jealousy a lot.
Oh my God, I'm going to steal that one. Rested in it.
Yeah, because the thing is, I know when I was younger, I especially felt, and it wasn't jealousy of anything in particular, except that it felt like I was, and I would say almost envious, but it really was jealousy about how, and this is oftentimes when I wasn't even in a relationship, but I was hoping to be in a relationship. I was jealous of some other guy getting the attention of the woman I was fascinated by, sort of thing. So it wasn't even real stuff. I was being jealous of, like, my partner, because we weren't in a relationship. But when I was younger, especially in my early 20s and late teens, I would see a woman I was interested in, but my self-esteem definitely wasn't strong, and my game was useless. So that I didn't approach, and then some other guy would quote in quote swoop in.
Yeah.
And I'd be jealous of that. And so I'd be so upset about that, even though I was single. So in the context of relationships, it would separate me from them distinctly. I mean, I'd be so resentful and so upset. I'd pretend or try to be immune to all of this. But in fact, I was just burning up in my own jealousy inside.
Yeah.
So one of my very happy experiences.
You're coming up with some great lines, Barry.
It's like,
so, I know what you mean. Yes, definitely. Growing up, I had a sister that was just a year older than me, who was stunningly beautiful, and actually was second runner-up in Miss Universe. So you can understand how that felt, living in her shadow. And yes, there was definitely jealousy because, as I said, she just had to walk in a room and men would drop all like flies around her. So I definitely grew up with some jealousy, but I think because I felt that I couldn't compete maybe on a physical level with her, I really spent a lot of time on developing my other skills or things I was proud of or felt that were uniquely mine, that I was an artist or whatever it was that I put my focus in on rather than just the way I looked. So that made me much stronger. It was a really good thing for me to do, is to focus on what I could control, not what I couldn't control.
right.
So,
Good job.
and again, when I was in a relationship, unless Yeah, I think it's just me. My mum always used to say, "Oh, you're Pollyanna," and I think I do put blinkers on a little bit, like because it's just a protective way to live for me, rather than be um, open to everything that could
Hmm.
balance me. I tend to be a little bit more just sort of like not taking too much peripheral information that's not necessary to my life.
Right.
But I have been another one I wanted to bring up because this is really important. I definitely grew up with low self-esteem, and what I did was, if I was with somebody or started dating somebody that behaved jealous in a jealous way, I took that in my warped way of thinking that they really, really liked me. Oh, this person is so jealous. This proves how much they love me. And, oh, that is just so not true. It is not true. When you allow that relationship to develop and that jealousy becomes worse and worse, and this side of them comes out that is really destructive,
Yeah.
um, please don't think that is a sign of how much somebody cares about you. It is just a sign of their insecurity and their control issues. It has nothing to do with love.
Yeah. I mean, it can appear to feel like being protected or being kept safe, but really what it's about is separating you from any risk of the fact that you might be attempted by somebody else. And so it is their own self-esteem issues, or or inability to be comfortable in their own skin, that they're going to keep sort of trying to make sure that you don't get tempted by anybody else. And so that jealousy is definitely destructive. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like without a father, there's little feedback here. I hope we're
Yeah.
not getting it. Um, but growing up without a father, I did. I think I yearned for that protective figure, that person that was, going to have my back, be hyper vigilant over me, take care of me, make sure I was safe. So I was primed for that type of energy
Yeah.
that had been seen growing up. But again, as I say, further into the relationship, I was able to see like, whoa, this is not what is healthy. This is not what you need. And I remember even somebody asking me once to burn all previous photographs of any boyfriends I may have had. And I remember the feeling I had in that moment was like, well, you can ask me to do that, which I'm not going to do. I'm just going to hide
Right.
them
Yeah.
or give them to a friend to put at her house. But it was almost like, would you also want to give me a lobotomy? Would you like to burn that memory from my mind? You
Mhm.
can't do that. You can't. You have to be secure enough in your mind that what you have with somebody is it's new, it's different, it can't be compared. Love comes in many shapes and forms, and you can love many, many people in different ways. And just because you've loved in the past does not mean that this present love you have is threatened or less than.
Right. However, on the other side of the coin, there are
Yes.
some people who like to make their partners jealous by flaunting their past relationships in their face, sort of thing. So it can also be used that way. It can be weaponized just to keep the new partner. Jealousy is the weapon, but in terms of the keep them on their toes and keep them uncertain and make sure they don't get complacent. So it
Yeah.
can be used. Some people use it as a weapon in a way. So they use the other side of it. So they can dangle, pictures of their exes in front of their new partner to say, you got to step up to match that sort of thing, because otherwise you'll never be as good as them,
Yeah.
which so
Right.
diminishing.
So I was certainly not doing that. They were just tucked away in some old photo albums
Yeah, yeah,
somewhere that that somebody came across, and even to the point of, you look really lovely in this picture. Who took the picture? Even if they weren't in the picture with me, somebody must have taken it. So
right, yeah.
it could be extreme. But let's talk about some of the ways that it really does damage the relationship. Say that they're two healthy people, or rather, when I say healthy, I mean two people that are in a relationship together. There's none of that trying to make your partner jealous. There's no having cheated before and therefore your partner's hypervigilant. It
Mhm.
just is that there are two people in a relationship, and it can be. I mean, I know couples where they're equally jealous and they equally tear each other down. And I mean, it just means that the demise of the relationship is going to be twice as fast when you've got
Yes.
from both sides. But or there's been a partner that isn't jealous and a partner that is.
Hmm.
But let's talk a little bit about. I've shared a lot about my experience of being with a jealous partner, but as I say, some of the things, it was very much about control. very much about low self-esteem, even though the person didn't appear to have low self-esteem, but was obviously threatened by any previous love or anything like that.
Yeah.
But what can end up happening is, so, let's talk from the person that's jealous from their perspective. It might feel that you're just checking in for reassurance and looking for that reassurance. But imagine, put yourself in the other person's shoes. What is the message you're giving to them? One is that you don't trust them.
Yep.
And another one is that you need to control them, or that they're responsible to make you feel better about yourself. You're
Hmm.
putting the onus on them, not on you. But also, what can start happening is your partner can start hiding normal, very innocent little things for fear of it setting off a jealous reaction.
And it
So
becomes, it snowballs.
some snowballs, exactly. And then there's resentment, there's
Yep.
passive aggressiveness, dishonesty. Dishonesty. It's like, oh, I'd rather not say this to, because even though there's nothing to be dishonest about, but
Hmm.
I know that my partner gets really jealous when I talk to so and so. So I'm
Right.
going to say I didn't see them, or I didn't do that, or I didn't go out with my friends, or all of these ways in which. Oh, and then the big one, I've heard this one is somebody saying, well, if you're going to accuse me of doing these things, I might as well do them. They use
Right.
that justification. That one I was taking it too far. But
Well, the thing is, though, that's what sometimes happens is when the person who's manipulating away, saying about, they're so jealous, it's almost like the person who's being judged. It's almost like you create the reality that you've been fantasizing about. Like they start doing that because you've told them. It's like you're so jealous of them that, like you said, the person said, "I might as well do it." Well, in some cases, they do that behavior because they said, "Well, I'm already charged and prosecuted. Let me go commit the crime," sort of thing. You know.
I always think that's a really funny one. It's like, hang on a minute, that's taking it a little too far. But yeah, I mean, and trust, not, getting the message from your partner that they don't trust you. It's that erodes so much. It erodes, again, as I said, intimacy, how honest you want to be with them. Um, and even it's so funny as I'm talking about this, I'm actually thinking about my son, and it wasn't jealousy, but it's just a sidebar here. But I remember I would have big reactions to things when he was a bit younger, and I remember him saying to me once, um, I started to lie because you were having big reactions to the truth. And I thought, whoa, that is such an important. I mean, I wasn't, I don't think he was manipulating me at all. He was being honest. And I was like, oh, interesting. I have to really watch how I react. If I'm expecting somebody to come to the table and really be honest with me, I have to be really mindful of how I respond to that honesty. And
Yep.
I bring that up because it's the same thing here,
Hmm.
in the sense of, if you feel threatened by somebody, you can go to your partner and say, I'm a little uncomfortable with this friendship, or I'm a little uncomfortable how you interact with this person, or vice versa. But if you are going to have that conversation, remain as neutral as possible so your partner can be honest and less defensive, and
Yeah.
not like it's all your imagination, you're imagining it, but really hear you and love you, and want to make you, not feel these feelings, but also to not to be accused
Hmm.
and attacked for
Yeah.
something that might be very innocent.
The one of the cures for this, which I think one of the things we don't think about sometimes, is when we're feeling that in the middle of the feelings and not sure what to do about it, is we can actually say to our partner, "This is what I'm feeling," right? Because a lot of times what we do is we don't tell them what we're feeling, we just start reacting to them and
Mhm.
becoming aloof and separated and distinct and judgmental, all these different things. We would say, I'm just I'm feeling like I'm not feeling deserving right now, and I'm just feeling a bit jealous. Can we talk about it? Because I just want to make sure that we are on the same page. That's part of a conscious relationship, is that there's a level of communication, because unfortunately we don't always communicate well, which I know we talked about in previous episodes. So the understanding about how jealousy can impact a relationship is because it's like it gets away from us. We give up trying to be conscious, and we default into basic behaviors, sort of thing, and we end up becoming this. We weaponize our upset and use the other person as the victim of that, which is really not healthy. Which is why relationships don't last that well when the jealousy comes up.
Well, and also, you're talking about, and rather than just saying, I feel this way, that you start acting out your feelings. But the other thing is when people say, you make me feel this way, and they blame the person for how they're feeling. And
Mhm.
saying that you can't be impacted by your environment and by people's actions and things like that, 100% you can. But we are responsible for how we respond to that stimuli,
Yes.
how we are receiving it. And so we are ultimately responsible for our feelings. And if you're with somebody that is either um, negligence is not quite the right word, but rather disconnected or doesn't really give a damn, so just be
Mhm.
blunt here, rather, about your feelings, then, and does say, not have a roving eye or comment on other women being so beautiful or other guys being more handsome or whatever it is, you know,
Yeah.
just be a little sort of, nobody says you can't appreciate beauty. I certainly think that, I certainly appreciate beauty, and I hope my partner does too. But we don't say it overtly to each other. I'm sure I've seen his eyes go, looking over at somebody once or twice, and I'm sure he's noticed the same in me. We don't comment on it to make our partner feel insecure or jealous, but
Well,
it's human nature.
well, couple of things on that. One is I know that um, we men are much less subtle about our noticing than women are. So women tend to notice men like craning their necks to look into something because we can't not do it, sort of thing. Whereas men don't notice the women who can appreciate because they do it so much more subtly than that. So one thing
Yeah,
that's going on. The second thing I'll say quickly though is something I might have said this broadcast before, but one thing my mom used to say about my dad all the time was she would say it about he can window shop as much as he wants, just don't go in and buy anything.
yeah. I
So it's
think
like,
you. I think
yeah,
you mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, and that's what prompted this thing about
in context, because she basically said it's like in a way she doesn't get jealous unless he does something he shouldn't do, sort of thing. And that's the thing, is there's that boundary of which you cross. And
yeah,
so in relationships it's like sometimes it's good to have the conversation early on in the relationship. What is our loyalty rule, what is our trust rule, what is our comfort with other people? Like, for example, I have a lot of female friends I've had over the years, many friends who are women are friends of mine, never going to date any of them, but they're friends of mine. So if I get in a relationship, I'm not going to stop seeing those friends because I care about them. And if she won't understand that, relationship isn't going to work, period. So having agreements up front in the relationship about connections and trust and everything else, women have male friends too. It's like, can that be workable? Because sometimes people get they so don't trust themselves or have self-esteem that when they meet somebody, that person's going to drop everybody of the opposite sex that they know in their lives. It's crazy,
yeah.
you
And
know?
again, as you're talking, I'm listening. I'm thinking to myself that is exactly what happened when the person that asked me to burn the photographs um,
Right.
realized that I was friends with a previous boyfriend. They were like, "That has to end." And I remember thinking, "Why and how?" And I was unfortunately young and did what I was told, basically. And I remember my uh, male friend who had previously dated was like horrified. And what type of woman would ever let a man tell her what to do? And I was young and stupid, and I thought maybe I'm not being loyal, but definitely that is something that. Especially in this day and age, because we're not, we so many of us are divorced, second marriages, second things like that. There's this whole jealousy around the former spouse,
Yeah.
and um, and again, it's if you keep focusing on what was, what they had, do you live up to it? Do you compare? As opposed to just putting all that energy and all that focus in having the best relationship possible that you're having presently in the present moment. There's a
Mhm.
reason why that this couple has separated. Maybe there is some lingering feelings from one spouse for the other spouse or something like that. But it is
Right.
in the past. It is done. Don't bring that toxicity and that negativity in the present relationship, because it's not. It consumes you, and it consumes the fire that you could be using to build your own relationship.
Yeah,
It's just.
absolutely. It's so depleting. Absolutely, you're right.
Mhm. And the other thing I was going to say, there was when you're living with a jealous partner, and we've touched on this, but it's like you're walking on eggshells. You can't be
Yeah.
yourself. You're hyper vigilant, not just on what the jealous person is hyper vigilant on what their partner's doing, and you become hyper vigilant on what you're doing because you don't feel free to just be yourself in the relationship. You're constantly editing and on guard and worried that whatever you say, look, might do, would set somebody off. So again, it creates a chasm between you. It doesn't bring you any closer. Not
Yeah.
to say, though, that if you are having feelings of jealousy and insecurity, we're not saying, push them down, don't acknowledge them. Absolutely acknowledge them within yourself and share how you feel if it's appropriate in a very non-attacking, non-judgmental way, but also seek support outside, whether it's with a therapist or a coach or whatever, to work on, you could have lingering jealousy from a childhood, say, where, you had parents that cheated on each other and you saw the damage and the effect that has. And so maybe that's an old wound that you carry with you and you feel, I'll never let that happen to me. So you become, as I said, hyper vigilant. Maybe you've been betrayed in the past, but again, it's like I always said, if I'm going to move on, I want to move on with an open heart rather than a closed heart. Because to me, there's no point in moving on if that's the case. There's no point in being in another relationship if I bring in all the toxicity of the previous relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing is having such a conscious way of being in a relationship. And that's why I call Relationship Mastery as a podcast, because it's about really becoming more conscious and masterful in your relationship skills. And one of these basic things like jealousy is so insidious with us, especially in our society, because our society is really trained on everybody looking prettier or better looking or more successful, all these different things. And we, frankly, if we keep doing this, we'll never measure up to the standard we think we should match up to. So we'll be jealous of who we're not, in fact, not so much of other people. We become jealous of what we didn't achieve or what we didn't become because we think we, in air quotes, should be better. So when we get in a relationship, we don't feel comfortable being ourselves in our relationship because we're so busy distracted from being present by what we're not having. And so this dichotomy that people face is they can't just be totally vulnerable and honest and real with their partner. And so sometimes you wonder why a partner gets jealous is because we're not present to them. So they don't know we're even with them, which is one of the issues as well. So it really is it's a muddy pit to jump into.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you were saying that about the social media thing, I mean, it's so painful. It's so what it's done to our culture. And it highlights that we do this comparison on such a superficial level because again, that one great photograph on social media is probably one of 1,000 that got click, 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 and then they choose the best one.
Right.
Or where somebody's going or where they've been, and again, it's such a concocted presentation of who they are, what their life looks like, and I think as we get older, thank God, we know more and we're wiser to it. But I feel so badly for the younger generation that live in this world of likes and clicks and and
Well,
just
yeah, but on top of that, just make it even more fun is because seeing people who are not as young anymore, but using AI to look younger, the fake image create themselves to make them look like somebody they're not. And I was looking at a friend of mine's pictures and went, hang a second, that's not who they are. That's an AI image of them. And it's like the being fooled by that and not seeing the person as they really are is one of the games and the challenges. I mean, even the dating apps now, you meet somebody in real life and they don't look like their pictures. It used to be the game was, well, their pictures don't match because they were 20 years old. Now they're just cheated by AI, so they look younger, but they're not even real. So let me say it this way: getting jealous sometimes is the least concerning thing to worry about. Just be true to yourself, and if they don't match who they look like, you can walk away.
exactly. And then the other thing is, what can also happen in if you are excessively jealous is that it can become a very sort of tit for tat. So somebody that might not even really sort of, what did you say earlier? I love that word, rest in that space.
Rest in jealousy, yeah.
Rest in jealousy. even if you don't naturally rest in jealousy, it could be like a sort of, well, if you're going to treat me like this, I'm going to treat you like that, and it becomes this as I said,
Yeah.
and again, it's that aggravation in the relationship that's just, you know, not necessary. We have so many real things that we need to navigate within our relationships, rather than having that sort of, you did this to me, so I'm going to do it to you. You made me jealous, I'm going to make you jealous. It's not the way that's going to build any real intimacy, closeness, safety. Safety is very important in relationship.
Yeah.
Trust. So, yeah. I think of anything else that we. I think it just. I think jealousy ultimately drives you a wedge between you. But
I guess
both,
I guess the bottom line I say is that most of the time we get jealous, it's based on a fantasy, not on a reality.
I would say,
So, if you're stuck in jealousy or jealousy shows up, do yourself a favor and do due diligence. Basically, ask questions, look around, discover: is something really happening you should be jealous of, or are you making it up because you don't feel comfortable? Because a lot of times jealousy shows up because your own self-esteem has been diminished by whatever happened, not even maybe in a relationship partner, but from work or from some other environment. So jealousy can be a warning sign for self-awareness. So if you really want to use jealousy for good, in quotes, use it as a notification to go, hang a second, what am I being triggered by? What's causing this? Rather than going, they're wrong, I should get upset, that sort of thing. So it moves you one step forward.
yeah. And the other thing is that my sister, actually, the one that I was jealous of when I was younger, growing up, she once said this to me, oh, many many years ago, and it just stuck because it's so true. It's She said, it's natural. Like, she had short legs. She used to say, I'm around all these other models with really long legs. I'm jealous of their long legs. She said, but I always ask myself, what is my best feature? I mean, we're talking just physical now, but it goes beyond that. But she said, I think about my best feature, and would I give up my best feature for those long legs? And she said, no. And so, but widen that out a bit. I mean, her best feature happened to be her eyes. She felt, and she wanted to keep her eyes and not have the long legs. But
Right.
you can do that in everything. Just check with yourself. If you feel envious or jealous about somebody else, you think they're prettier, more successful, more intelligent, more funnier, whatever it is, just say, yes, they have that quality. Well, what is a quality within me that I love about myself? And
There
would
you go.
give up that quality to have what I see in them? And usually the answer is no.
Right.
So it's a really good reminder to just come back to being, to knowing that, we're all different. We all are, all come from the same spiritual source. So we're all, you know, identically sort of perfectly imperfect on that level, but we all
Mhm.
show up in the world, and we're going to have some qualities that we envy or are jealous of in other people. But it's always bringing it back to, no, I love who I am, and I appreciate everything that I have, even if I don't have long legs.
It's different, we're all unique. We're beautiful in our own way. If we can own that, that'd be great.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you, Barry. Thank you for another great chat, and I will see you next week.
See everybody next week. Thank you for this.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.